Speaking of vets, I thought about your story because I'm a story coach. Think about story a lot, and you've told me a story about losing your dog. I think they gave your dog away or something.
Oh, I don't think we want to go into that. When my mother gave my dog away,
Yeah.
I never forgave my mother. By the way, God is my witness. Mother, that happened when I was 16, right after my father died.
Right.
Not a good thing to do for a kid who just lost her father, to say we can't keep the dog and to take it to a humane society. I can't get over it. I think
Okay.
that's part of the reason I rescued all the dogs in Louisiana.
Well,
Uh,
that's what I was going to say, and that's why I was thinking about it because as a story coach, I talk to people all the time where the way that they're operating in this world is directly related to their story. And I thought about your story, and I'm like, that story, she's living that out in her adult life. She's still living it out. She is rescuing all the dogs. And you've rescued quite a few over the years. And you're still taking care of little Mr. Magoo and his eyes. And there's a lot of people who would just have put him down at this point.
oh, no, no,
But
no.
you can't see that at this time. But
His eyes clearing up. He's fixing to be declared well.
that's crazy because it
I
was
know.
pretty bad.
Well, I had people all over the place praying about it. So, and I learned a long time ago, and I think it was either Corey Ten Boom or Johnny Erickson or Brother Bowden, I don't know who, taught me that what's important to me is important to God. So Magoo is very important to me. So I just put it out on Facebook for people to pray. And today, Sonny and I were looking at it, and it's amazing. It's clearing up. It's a very rare, of course, either I or my animals get extremely rare infections, diseases, whatever. And they have the vets, I have to take him to a specialist. She said they have no idea what causes it.
You need to post a picture of Magoo on your page.
He's a cool dude. I
So
will.
we can all see him. Yeah, we need to put a
I'll do
face
it.
to his name. Yeah, so I was thinking about that because that trauma, that was trauma for you. Your dad
It was
dying.
double. Can you see how it was double trauma? My father had just died. Then we moved. We moved. He died in February. We moved at the end of I was at the end of the first semester of my senior year in high school. We moved out of the house we'd been in forever. And my dog Susie went to a relative, but she got out one day and she chased somebody and nipped at their heels. And that was just a game the dog and I played. It was no big deal. But Mother, the panicker, almost had a nervous breakdown. And so, boom, the dog was gone. So I had two things to grieve. And we later on, years and years later, when I married, a year or two after, we moved my mother down to Louisiana because of health. She had health problems. And she actually sat in my den one day and said, "Have you ever forgiven me for Susie?" And I said, "No, ma'am, I haven't." It just hurt me so badly.
It did, and it. I mean, it's an awful thing to do. Not to you know, paint your mom in a bad light. She didn't have the same kind of affection for the dog. I'm not
Well,
making excuses for
but
her.
Mother, she was doing the best she could.
She
She was
was.
46 years old, never worked because when she got married, she was a homemaker. And she was panicked herself.
Right.
But if we had sat down and talked through this, I believe we could have come to another solution. I really do.
Did you
Uh,
just, how did, well, what I was going to ask you is that a story you'd like to visit and maybe see if you can tend to that 16-year-old?
you mean right now?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I've never done that, but we can.
I know. I thought, well, you know what? I mean, because it's not a small thing. It's huge. And you've turned it into good by the way that you've rescued the other animals. I mean, that's beautiful. And this is what happens is a lot out of our pain. A lot of times there's some kind of gain, maybe a lot of times for other people or in your case, other animals.
Well, plus, look how it led me to a vet clinic where I
vet
had
clinic,
a classroom of
right.
young people.
So you have turned that story and oil it, like they say, you turn your lemons into lemonade, or you've taken that and you've become an advocate for animals. And you still do. You help other people if they're struggling to take care of vet bills with their animals and all that.
I do.
You really care for the animals,
I do.
and right. So what you've done with the pain is beautiful, right?
Now,
And
don't make me cry. I don't want to cry.
but here's the deal, and this is
Can I explain something to you real quickly?
sure, sure.
With the loss of my father and the loss of that dog, I could not experience the emotion of it. Boys don't cry when daddy died. I did not cry. I had to be tough when mother did that because we were transitioning to a small apartment. She was trying to start work. It was a mess.
It's really there's several pivotal memories that I've picked up from you. This is one of them. When your father died, you having to move. They're all strung together. It's like one big memory, but there's
Right,
little,
right.
and then the dog, and then the day that you lost your mom, and then 2 or 3 days later you lost your brother. Those were like really huge trauma events for you. And there's others, but I've seen little. Those are like, what would you call them? They're key trauma moments for you for sure. They're, what's that word I'm looking for?
I have no idea.
Pivots. They're kind of pivotal in your life, right?
I don't know if you say so.
Okay. But this happens with adults a lot. Now, obviously, you could have had a different response. You could have gotten angry with your mom and turned into a rebellious little brat and just done your own thing and said, I'm not messing with you anymore. You got rid of my dog. This is it. You say you haven't forgiven her, but you have, because you've treated her with great love and care and
Yeah.
kindness over the years. You haven't. When
Yeah,
we go to our conversations about forgiveness, you haven't held it against her, but what you haven't done is stopped hurting from it.
That's for sure. That's for sure.
So
That's true. That's true.
Yeah, right. So I'm thinking there's a 16-year-old girl back there that needs tending.
Okay, if I cry, I will fly to Tulsa and choke you.
Promise?
Except I can't fly.
No.
Did you say promise?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes me mad, and I deal with this a lot of times. There's a lot of clients who have they've made the lemonade out of the lemons. They're high functioning individuals, and because you're high functioning, you think it's just not needed or necessary to go back. But there's a binding up of the brokenhearted, right? This is what Jesus came to do. And there's a tending, like there's nothing that has escaped to him. And everything that matters to you, like you said earlier, matters to him.
I do believe that.
Well, I will take people back to those moments, and we will literally go in and talk to the girl and tend the girl in our imagination and bring comfort and all that kind of stuff. So if you're willing to give it a whirl, we can try it.
I'll try. If I try, I'm going to hurt you.
Okay, that's fine too.
No, I'm probably going to try. I know I'll probably will. Okay.
But
it's really strange. It's really strange. Upstairs in my living room, you've been here.
Uh-huh.
I have bookshelves that I have people of significance, their pictures up there. And the other day I passed by and there's a picture of mother and daddy, and he's got Susie, the dog, in his lap.
Susie.
And it just hit me, man. And I thought, he really loved that dog. My dad was a dog person, and he really loved that dog.
So this sheds even more light, because you are actually keeping your dad alive by loving animals.
I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're still keeping.
I would agree with that 100%.
Yeah. Isn't that interesting? So that's something I had not seen before. So that's really cool, because I mean, we talk, this is just for everybody that's listening, all of your fans.
Give me a break, man.
We talked this morning about, are we going to meet this afternoon? Yeah. Okay. What are we going to talk about? I don't know. We'll get there and figure it out. But that memory came to my mind. So I'm thinking, well, maybe that's from the Holy Spirit. And then you're telling me that it just recently just hit you again.
There was that picture, man. I had forgotten how much Daddy loved animals. And see, she was in his lap.
So here's what else I'm seeing here then. When your mom got rid of the dog, she was getting rid of your dad again.
Absolutely. I agree 100%. And, it was not long. I started my first year of college in January. We had January graduations. Mm-hmm. We were the last class to graduate in January. And so, boom, I had to jump right into college, right. And, I got Daddy, now Mother gives the dog away. We moved to this little dinky apartment, and maybe 2 months into my first semester of college, I had to drop out.
Right.
I just couldn't handle anything else.
Well, no one, of course. Your body was needing to grieve, and you weren't being allowed to do that. And everything that you had known, everything familiar from your mom had gotten ripped out from under you. Your home, your dog, your dad, and it's like everything's new. And then the Boyd mentality is like, suck it up, buttercup.
That's true. You get tough.
So you didn't really get to feel it, experience it, grieve it, but your body shut down. It just wouldn't let you stay in school.
My mind,
right?
You
were in trauma.
Yeah,
you were in a deep state of trauma.
That was in the 60s. People my age did not do counseling. They didn't even think of counseling for people my age.
No. And
I tell you, I've already mentioned this woman. I'll mention her again. My PE teacher at Samford University pulled me out of a hole in the ground just with love and concern. She was a Christian, very obviously a believer, and God used her to start that process.
Because she saw you.
She did see me.
She saw your pain.
She did.
Look at this. Look at how this story unfolds, because she saw you. And that's that's one of your favorite songs is I See You
Right.
by, what is it? Her,
Idina
Adina
Menzel.
Menzel. Menzel. So that segment of time, it's a very small segment, but it has huge ramifications. Has
I
made
will
you,
say this too. During that, my first semester was when I realized when I was a junior in high school, I realized I wanted to be a teacher because I had a young teacher right after Daddy died, a young female who took me under her wing. And that's when I decided, okay, I'm going to be a teacher like Joanne Sumner was her name. Going to be a teacher. Her. Okay, so then I get to Sanford, and Miss Washburn ministers to me so much, and my prayer was, one day I want to be a teacher like Mona Washburn.
So that's beautiful. What you're really saying is, one day I want other people to be seen like I've been seen.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I want other people to be cared for like I've been cared
Right.
by her.
Right. Right.
Right. I want other people to be comforted like I've been comforted.
Absolutely.
And
Absolutely.
you have lived that out. I mean, if you look at it, that whole trauma parentheses, that segment has been the catalyst for your entire life, how you've operated in this
Very
world.
true. It's absolutely true.
Have you ever thought about it like that before?
Especially since I got involved in jail ministry.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
When you, in fact, you helped me do that when we started going back, looking at my life. I started teaching school, and then that, and then that, and it all was tied up in a big bow.
Yes.
You helped do that.
When we were going through the wall, some of those revelations were coming. Right. And it's great and it's beautiful. It's beautiful how you've allowed God to enter into your life and move you. It's like that verse in Romans where it says, we comfort. Do you know exactly?
It's I think it's 2 Corinthians chapter 1.
Oh,
where we get hurt. It's either 1st or 2nd Corinthians. I think it's 2 Corinthians chapter 1. We go through a traumatic experience and God comforts us, and then we comfort somebody else who comes across our path with the same comfort that Christ used to comfort us.
Yeah. Here it is. The Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we may comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves receive from God.
Yep. That's been a significant verse in my life, and I've heard it probably the first time when I was around 26 years old. And it just hit me. Wow.
And you took what was the name of the lady in the high school?
Joanne Sumner.
Joanne Sumner. And then Miss Washburn. Both of those were the hands, the face, the heart of Jesus for you, right?
And both believers.
The God of all comfort. He came to you through them, comforted you in your troubles, and then you have turned around and comforted others in their troubles, and still do to this very day.
And hopefully, till y'all lower me into the ground, I want to go out flaming doing that. I do.
I know it. And I have another channel or track for us to jump on in light of what you just said. Let me just write that down. I want to go out aflame.
I do.
Doing this. I know, it's beautiful. Okay, so let's try it for a few minutes. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. That's fine. I always say, worst thing that can happen is nothing.
Okay.
If you can drop down into that 16-year-old's life, if you can just drop, if it helps to close your eyes, do drop down. I don't know which part of the story you want to go to. When you find out that your dad has died, when you find out that your dog is gone, or when you have to move. Which one of those three? Sorry.
Well, I felt like the earth opened up and I fell through when my dad died. That was just he was not a perfect man, but I knew he had a bad temper, but and that did tone down the last 2.5 years of his life, but he was steady as a rock. He was my security, my protector. I knew I was okay if he was in the picture.
Mm. So he felt like the solid rock beneath
He
you.
was.
He was the
Absolutely.
solid ground.
Absolutely.
Mm. Mm. So how did you find out about his death?
This I laughed because and it's not a ha-ha laugh, but it's very significant. My dad was probably, back then, when people had heart trouble, there was no open heart surgery. So at least 2, if not more times a year, he was in the hospital with some kind of a heart issue. And when he went in, it was for a month at least.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a large chunk of time.
Shoot.
As many times as that happened, I was never at home when he had an attack and had to be taken to the hospital. That's just phenomenal to me. I was never at home. I never saw that.
Mm.
To this day, I go, I don't understand that.
So you only saw him healthy, and then you would come.
No. He had heart trouble. So but he worked until the last 2.5 years of his life. Mm-hmm. He was a hard worker. He was a man of integrity and character, and he was a perfectionist. I get some of that from him. Mm-hmm. Very. But he would be okay, but then have heart pains and he was rushed to the hospital in ambulances. I was never at home. That's not normal.
What do you make
from the time I was 6 years old till I was 16, he had heart trouble. I was never at home when he had to be transported to the hospital in an ambulance. Never. A lot of times I would be with my friend Louise White. Her mom was like a second mother to me. And one of the weirdest things that ever happened to me is I was in 5 Points West, where I was a teenager, and my next door neighbor was a guy we call Boy Sims, Frank Sims. And I ran into him down in 5 Points West, and he told me, your dad had to be taken to the hospital. Well, I at that point, I hadn't been told that. It just totally shocked me. And as a result, in the back of my hairline, I lost a chunk of hair like that. And mother took me to the doctor, and the doctor says that's caused from trauma. And it was a result of him telling me my dad was in the hospital, and mother had not gotten the word to me at that point. And wow. So your body was really expressing your pain even before you could acknowledge it. Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
There's a really great book out there called The Body Keeps the Score, by the way. It's not easy reading.
My body.
It's pretty amazing, though, that the body will remember everything. I'm almost at the place where I believe that all ailments are connected to story and trauma.
I wouldn't doubt that.
But,
okay, so you asked me, how did I find out my dad had died? Is that what you asked?
Yeah.
Okay, so he had gotten put in the hospital By the way, he was at what we called back then South Highlands Hospital over near UAB.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where that is? Well, UAB has now purchased that
Yeah.
hospital. And so that's where he always was in the hospital, constantly. Not long ago, I had to have a CAT scan for UAB, and they couldn't do it at Kirkland Clinic, and they sent me to South Highlands because UAB has it now. It was so hard to walk into that hospital. Gee, it just flooded me because I lived there. We spent the night on the floor in waiting room for 5-6 nights. It was like my second home. It was unbelievable. So he got real sick and was put in the hospital. And I remember back then they had him under oxygen.
Yeah. Tent.
Tent. Yeah, that's what it was. Oxygen tent. He was under oxygen tent. He smoked. They told him to quit smoking, and my Uncle Gene, his brother, walked in, and Daddy asked him for a cigarette. And Uncle Gene said, "You will blow the whole hospital up if you try to take a cigarette." So he was real, real sick in the hospital. My brother came from Baton Rouge. I think he lived in Baton Rouge then. So I knew it was serious when my brother came. So we were all at the hospital one morning. I can remember, I can picture it. It's February the 4th, 1963. And it's snowing. Daddy's in the hospital. We get an early morning call. And so I was told we're called to the hospital, but we're on the way. I'm sitting in the back seat of the car. Buddy's driving, Mother's right here, and Buddy's saying to me, they act like I wasn't there. Buddy said, "You know, he's already dead, don't you? Because they've called us." And Mother said, "Yeah, I'm sure he is." I'm just sitting back in the back seat like I'm devastated. And sure enough, yes, when we got there, my poor mother, the nurses didn't catch her when she got on the floor, and she ran into the room, and his body was in there covered with a sheet. That should have never happened. Never happened. So that's how I found out that my father had died.
So you think it hit you when you heard them saying that in the car?
Scared the heck out of me. That's all. And see, I'm not a believer now at this point.
Yeah.
I'm as lost as I can be. And to think, Daddy had been in the hospital so many times.
Yeah.
How dare he die? That's not in the picture. He goes in the hospital for a month or two, and then he comes back home, and we start it all over again. So I went numb at that point. And I think it was several years before I came out of that. I really do.
Yeah, probably so. When you were in the hospital, where were you when your mom went into the room?
I was not with her. There was a waiting room on the bottom floor, which I saw a couple of years ago when we stepped into that hospital. And all I can remember is being down there. I don't know if Buddy was with Mother when she went in the room or not, but he was on the phone. They had pay phones on the walls. My brother's on the phone calling everybody. I'm just sitting there, and then Mother comes down and they talk. And I assume they told me then. I don't know if they.
Well, I'm sure you were hearing your brother telling people.
Yeah, I was hearing my brother talk. Yeah. Whether they ever directed it to me, I don't remember.
So you're just like.
So that's where it started. It's just like just a straight line, man. zoomed out.
Yeah. I just feel, I mean, that girl sitting in the waiting room, no one is tending her.
No, nobody did. And you know what? My Aunt Mimi, my brother, my dad's sister, that I loved with every fabric of my body, she also died of a heart attack in a hospital. That was West End Baptist, Princeton now.
Oh, yeah.
I was working then with mother at an insurance company, and mother came to me and said, "Look, Aunt Mimi's taking a turn for the worse. Would you go over to the hospital? I can't leave right now." So now I'm a junior in college.
Mm.
So my cousin Billy's there, Jimmy's there, their wives are there. And I get on the floor and they're taking my Aunt Mimi out of her room and rushing her to a place with oxygen and everything. And she's just doing like this. And I have to stand and watch that. Nobody's with me. And they took her, to back into the emergency room or something to care for her where she died. And I can remember, now I'm in Princeton now. I can remember standing in the waiting room with Billy and Jimmy and their wives. They're all talking. And again, I'm off to the side by myself. And that time I cried.
Mm.
And they noticed I was, Billy's wife noticed I was crying and came over and talked to me. Aunt Mimi, when I was 3 years old, Aunt Mimi lived with us. So I can, in my mind, as a 3-year-old, I can picture when she would go, her children were in Meridian. No. They were in Mississippi, Purvis, Mississippi, because their daddy had died. Aunt Mimi had to come back and live in Birmingham. My grandmother, Granny Boyd, took care of the boys, and Granny and Papa Boyd moved to Mississippi, and the boys went with them because my aunt had to work. So she lived with us during the week and went to see the boys on the weekend. And when she would come back on Sunday night, I would bear hug her and hold on to her. For all my life, I loved that woman. And Mother and I spent a lot of time with them after Daddy died. We would spend the night at Granny's and my Aunt Mimi. So I had another time where I stood on the side, and it was like everything starts going slow motion when you go through that.
Mm-hmm.
But by that time, I had learned to deal. I was a believer. So I had learned how to deal with grief better then. So,
Just seeing this young girl so alone in grief, right? I wonder.
Here's what my mother said, that when my father died, I grew up overnight. I wasn't a kid anymore, because here it was just me and Mother. She
Right.
had to go to business school to sharpen up her shorthand and typing in order to get a job. She had taken that in high school. And so it was just, and I'm going to say this, nobody in our family ever gave my mother a penny. Now, we lived with my grandmother and grandfather, my Mama Harris, for a while. That was my mother's parents. But I can remember Mother giving her money for groceries that they bought. It was tough.
Widow and an orphan.
Yeah. My mom's boss was a female, Ruby DeGrata. I'll never forget her. she would give mother money to make it through a period of time before she got her check from work. It was tough.
So,
But I didn't know when I was going through it, I didn't know how bad it was because mother let as much as she could wanted me to be a child and she would be the adult. So she didn't burden me with she told me afterwards when she moved down to Louisiana, she told me a lot of stuff.
but she said you grew up overnight. I think some of that was forced upon you.
Like how?
Like she didn't sit down with you and help you sort through the grief and sort through the pain. She was just like, well, we just got to rally around. We got to rally and suck this up and go because now we've got the whole world, the weight of the world on our shoulders, and we've got to go make it without Dad.
And so here's
no
the deal.
time for
Here's
grief.
the
And that
deal.
makes me feel sorry for her too, that she didn't.
That's what I was fixing to say. My mother was overwhelmed.
Oh yeah.
Nobody, no, except for my grandparents letting us move in for a little while. Nobody monetarily helped us. She had a brother who had big money.
That's so tragic. It's so sad.
So I totally give my mother a break on all that. Totally.
Sure.
She was doing the best she could. And
Yeah.
at that point, we were like two forces working and pulling together to survive what we were going through.
Right.
She was 46 years old when her husband died. Yeah. And they married, I think she was 19 when they
married. So we don't, like in story work, we don't name things to create blame. We name it. We name it so that, because you can't really heal from what you don't name. And the naming is, when we say you were alone, left alone, and I'm going to use the word abandoned, really, emotionally neglected, we're not blaming your mom. We're just naming the situation. That's the way it was back then. Okay. But it doesn't saying she did the best she could, or that's the way it was. That's no consolation for the 16-year-old.
No, I was hurting badly. Like I said, at that point, I had Joanne Sumner, the teacher.
Right.
And my second mother, Ms. White, was a great mother to me. And Betty Winslet was a spiritual dynamite mother to me.
Right.
Those two women to help me work through everything.
This is where you see the sovereignty of God. This is God noticing you. God noticing.
Yes, he did.
Girl. He's like prompting this Joanne to move towards you. He's prompting Washburn to move towards you. He's prompting Winslet to move towards you. All of that's really good. But let's just stop for a minute and let's go back to the waiting room in the hospital where Buddy's on the phone, your mom's upstairs, you're just sitting there in this trauma fog. I wonder if you would be willing, the adult you, the current you, go into the waiting room and sit down beside her.
Oh, of course I will.
Yeah. So in your imagination, go and sit beside her. And what do you want to say to her? What do you want to offer her in this place?
Gee, I don't know. I'm so sorry. So sorry that you're alone. Everybody's ignoring you, you know.
She needs to be recognized. So this is great. You're doing great. What else would you say or do?
Yeah, you mean me where I am in my life right now?
Right.
I would take her by the hand and pray with her. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I would put my arm around her and hug her.
Mm-hmm. She just needs to be noticed I
Yep.
see your pain. I see your suffering. I see that you're all alone.
Scared to death.
So scared. You're so scared. Mm-hmm. I'm here for you.
Absolutely.
I'm here for you.
I'm here for you.
Okay.
Absolutely.
In your imagination, how is she responding to that?
Well, if I reach over and pull her to me, she's giving in to that hug.
That's great. She's not resisting you.
No.
So just do that in your imagination. Just hold her, give her what she needs right there.
Yes.
And there's no rush. There's no rush. Just hold her, rock her, give her what she needs, see how she's responding to
it. Crying.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Cry.
Is
Yep.
she permission to cry? Permission to cry?
She does because she's crying. She is coming.
She's feeling safe with you then.
Yeah. She feels very
Boys
safe.
don't cry. So
yeah, boys don't cry.
say, but you can tell her the truth here. Yes, boys do cry, and it's okay.
Absolutely.
It's okay. It's okay. You should be crying. Of course you're crying. This is very scary. It's very scary. Just stay there with her. Because this is huge and you don't want to rush. You don't want to rush past this moment. I know if it were me sitting in that chair, you'd stay there to eternity.
The little girl.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
The 15-year-old, maybe 16. Stop. Um, you would have the patience of Job right there.
Yes, like I have with many other
Yes.
young people. Yes.
And so you're just turning that and giving it to the younger you. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to leave you. I'm not going to leave you. I'm going to stay here with you.
Okay, can I come out of this comment?
Sure.
Never say, "Oh me, my battery's low."
Uh-oh.
You want me to go get a?
No, just keep going. Let's.
I would never say it's going to be okay.
All right. Good.
People say that.
Mm-hmm.
Come on.
Mm-hmm.
It takes a long time for it to be okay.
So instead of
I
telling
can't
me,
say it ever gets okay.
instead of telling me, just tell her that because she knows it anyway because she's you. I'm not going to sit here and blow smoke up your butt. It's not going to be okay. This is going to hurt.
It's going to hurt for a long time.
It's going to hurt. Mm-hmm. But I'm going to be with you.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. And it's okay to hurt, and you don't have to stuff it down.
That's so contrary.
It is, but yeah, there's still a piece of you that wants to do that.
Yeah,
the adult.
Absolutely.
But I'm if you can give that to the younger you, you can give that to the older you. So let's offer it to her because I know you have tremendous amount of compassion towards the youth. Okay.
I do.
Just say, what were you saying? I just lost train of thought.
Yeah, it's okay to cry.
It is okay to cry.
You don't have to be a tough boy.
You don't have to be. How did it even feel to say that?
It just kind of choked in my throat. Kind of choked in my throat.
Yeah, you don't have to be tough.
It's so contrary to being a boy, and I respected my father so much And
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to be like him. See, he was like that. But
Mm-hmm.
he had a soft heart, but he tried to be real tough on the outside. So
Right.
to please
So,
him, I wanted to be like that.
so stay with her and
Right?
say, um, Dad, you loved your daddy. He had some great characteristics, some wonderful things. But the one thing you don't want to carry forward is this tough shell.
Yeah,
It's
it's true.
okay to be soft. It's okay.
Yes.
And
Okay.
it is not betrayal of your father to feel your,
That's a mouthful right there.
now say it and see.
Not betrayal of your father.
Mhm. How did that feel?
It's scary, you know.
Mhm. But I imagine
I
that she,
believe I believe it by faith. It's hard to feel that.
right. Okay, so we'll wind this part up.
Okay.
But I think you've done really well because this is kind of an awkward exercise to do, um, for everybody, not just for you, but just for people in general. We're not used to going back to the younger versions of ourselves and offering tenderness and kindness and love. It feels maybe, I
I
mean,
like it.
you liked
I
it.
like it. Yeah. I
I
like it.
mean, what was your experience of it?
It was just very tender. It was very liberating.
Mhm.
and it made me realize you remember Joyce? I think her name was Joyce Littauer, that did different kinds of personalities, sanguine. She had four or
Yep,
five.
yep, yeah. Personality
The one,
Plus.
what?
Personality Plus was the name of the book.
The woman was the funniest human
She
being.
was funny.
So I took all her little. I went to a seminar in Baton Rouge, 2 3 day seminar with her, and I took her little personality test and everything. And I came up. She said in her book, she said this rarely happens. Sanguine and what's the one that's depressed, starts with an M.
Melancholy. Melancholy.
I got those two are my top
Really?
two. She said that in her book. She said that almost never happens.
Mm.
But there has been a side of me forever that's real uh, melancholy, real. I can go to bad places, especially back in the day with music,
Mhm.
secular music, not crazy stuff, but just Linda Ronstadt. I could sit and listen to Linda Ronstadt and get, be depressed. What's it song?
Well,
Desperado. She got a song called
oh, so
and
this,
I was like, God, that's me, Desperado. You know, the
I,
song was me, and
yeah,
I had bouts with getting real down and real depressed, and most people have never seen that. I don't know if very many people at all that have ever seen that. My roommate, I'm sure Janet did, roommates, but
you know what
I
that
have
sounds.
I have that. I almost call it a dark side of me that gets really dark, not evil dark, but just oppressive kind of side of me. So,
Hmm.
and I think a lot of that, now that we're doing this, I think a lot of that came from those times when I was over in the corner. And see, I was always considered a tough kid
Mhm.
emotionally. I could take, you can do it. You strong, you this,
Right.
you this. So in my times alone, I could get very
Mhm.
I don't know, dark, not in an evil way, but just
Right.
whoa. And this is a discussion for another time. There are two different times that I've taken a gun and loaded it to possibly kill myself. It was, and the first time was when my stepfather died. And here's the deal. It happened right after my stepfather died. Here's the deal. For the first time, I dealt with my father's death when my stepfather died. And I just now I've figured that out in the past, but I'm telling you now, when my stepfather died, I told my mother, I'm in the process of dealing with my father dying. And I did do it. I was a believer then. That was in 83. So I was in my late 30s when that happened.
So, wow, that's really interesting. The 30-year-old.
37.
37-year-old you dealt
with my father's death then. I remember telling my mother that.
Yeah, that was very insightful.
I cried at my stepfather's funeral. And he was an alcoholic, and when he drank, he was very mean, and he physically abused my mother. And so all this, this is way too much stuff. But we had a meeting. He got sick with heart trouble, put in the same hospital. Came out for a short period of time. I went over to talk to him and told him I forgave him for what he had done to my mother. My mother, he made sure bruises didn't show. Mother was 5'2". He would take her and throw her up against walls and stuff. And so,
Judy.
So and my brother was at Mr. Mack's funeral, and mother and me on the same row. And when I started crying, both my mother and my brother just turned and looked at me. Tears were, I'm sure, for Mr. Mack's son, but I'm sure most of that was for my dad.
It was like holding a beach ball underwater all those years. And that was the catalyst that lifted
I
cried. The ball of grief.
Cried like a baby.
Oh, I bet that was real therapeutic for you.
I don't know, but man.
But that makes sense. And oh my gosh, so many thoughts have come to me while you're talking. You said you're melancholy. That's how you test it out. But I wonder, I'm not really arguing with the test. I'm just saying, I wonder how much of that was just the grief that had been suppressed.
I don't know. I do know that is a legitimate side of me.
Yeah. And because of that, all of the suppression that you had done just made everything that much worse. It felt that much worse, right?
Right.
So let's kind of wrap up the story of the girl in the waiting room. I mean, I think I really want us to continue doing story work at the different stages of this, because I love that you found it helpful and liberating. I love the word liberating. To just go and tend to her. I mean, and that's something that you can do anytime you want. I mean, you're sitting out on the porch, you think about her, you can put your hand on your heart and say, it's okay to grieve. It's okay to hurt. You don't have to be strong. Whatever you feel like she needs to hear.
Right.
And turn it. Sometimes you have to put the face of somebody else because you've been really hard on yourself. I would say you've been very brutal to yourself in not allowing yourself to feel the feels. But that's how you were trained. That's what you knew, and that's what worked. That's what you had to do at the time. But you don't have to do that anymore.
Right.
So whatever you anytime she comes to your mind or that memory comes to mind, if you can just in your imagination put your hands on your heart and just connect with her.
I get you. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sitting here thinking, I was always, it was always like everyone, at least family, that I was Judy, the tough little kid. I could handle it, and I was not ministered to. It's
Right.
because I, in everybody's mind, I was this tough, strong, even kid.
Yeah. I'm here to see
I,
that.
I don't understand that. Why would
Well, that's not that difficult to understand because one, we're very inconvenienced by other people's grief. So the fact that you were handling it so tough was a blessing to them because they didn't have to
yeah,
deal with it.
yeah.
And they probably praised you for it, how resilient you were. And that's
I'm
not a
sure.
blessing. That's
I,
actually a
I know.
curse,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I
Um,
understand.
oh, to God that somebody would have said, "Hey, girl, you don't have to be this tough." But you probably couldn't have received it at that time anyway because that's all you knew.
Right, and I didn't want to let my daddy down.
Didn't want to let him down.
I really did.
That seemed like a key point in the exercise that we were doing when you said it's not betraying dad.
Right. That's just colossal to me. That just almost makes my hair stand up straight.
Yeah. So well done. I think you did a really great job doing that, and going through cooperating and actually not just going through the motions, but literally feeling that for her,
Yeah.
being there with her. So that's beautiful. So we need to go to the girl that lost the dog, the girl that's lost Mimi, the girl that lost her stepfather, all of these different places, and let's tend to her. And because one of the things that I've learned through the Islander Center is we really can't take people further than we've gone ourselves.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So the more that you tend to the younger you, the less fragmented you are, the more whole you become, the more you actually have to offer.
Right.
Still, the people that you're ministering to.
I really appreciate you doing that story thing. I like that.
Yeah. Thanks for participating.
It's very
Yeah.
helps me understand me even more. You know.
Yeah. Like your body, you're like, does it feel like you're, tell me how it feels in your body?
Uh, like a load has been lifted. Um, I do, that word liberating just keeps like I could fly. You know. Uh, it's unbelievable. It's gave me a lot of insight into myself as a kid. I did grow up overnight. I did. I was asked to handle things way beyond what I was equipped to handle at the time. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Well done.
good and faithful, sir.
All right, girl. I got to
All
get
right.
back to cleaning.
All right. Thank you so much.
Love you. Thank
Love
you.
you.
Bye.